Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Success in Africa Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor-Pearce, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. I have been studying this for 3 decades now with a particular focus on people in Africa. And in this podcast, I share stories, lessons, and insights about people having success in Africa. Why this podcast? Because I have a vision for Africa. I have a vision of Africa becoming a middle-income continent by the year 2030 and a high-income continent by 2040. And for that to happen, I need you and every other African watching or listening to this podcast to become successful. So, if you want to be successful in Africa, I encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast. This episode is brought to you courtesy of BCA Online. It's the one-stop shop for mastering leadership. Joining BCA Online is free, and it gives you access to countless hours of knowledge, of videos, and a plethora of resources on leadership that will enhance your capacity. If you have questions that you want me to answer after watching this video, just log on to BCA Online. The link is on the screen, and post your questions there. That is where I will respond to your questions. Today's episode is about a woman who built the largest uniform distributorship company in Sierra Leone and defied conventional wisdom to start her journey when her classmates were retiring. She launched this company when she was 54 years old, an age when most Africans are thinking more about retirement than starting a big business, and certainly when most African women of that age are thinking more about babysitting their grandchildren than about clothing other people's children. But this woman was not an ordinary African. Her name was Olive Taylor-Pearce, and she was my mother. She passed away a month ago. May her soul rest in peace. But being called Olive, or giving birth to me, or dying, is not why this woman is unique or special. She's special because she was a phenomenal entrepreneur and a successful African. Let me tell you a bit about her. Olive had a fairly ordinary childhood. She was a middle-class child of six, she was the middle child of 6 children, raised in a middle-class household. She completed her secondary school and attended a teacher training college, frankly, because her secondary school final exam grades were not terribly excellent. She met my father while she was in college, and they got married a few months after graduation. Again, nothing special about that background. In the first 3 decades of her married life, she raised 5 children, lived in 4 different countries, supported her husband's career, and helped her children adjust to life in different countries. She was gifted with creative thinking and innovation, and she used these skills to solve various challenges that she would encounter in trying to get her family to adjust and thrive in different countries. When she and my father eventually returned to Sierra Leone to semi-retire, my father was almost 60 at the time, Olive's penchant for problem solving and her risk-taking appetite collided when one of her friends, a school headmistress, bemoaned the fact that she could not get the appropriate color of school belts for her schoolgirls because the person who had been contracted to procure the belts for the school had fallen ill and forgotten to get these belts purchased and shipped into Sierra Leone. Olive's creative brain snapped into action, and she found a solution in a UK-based supplier who connected her through one of her cousins. She asked the school headmistress if she could consider purchasing the belts from her, and she could make them available in a month. When the school headmistress said, "Yeah, we'll do it. I'll buy it if you have it here in a month," Olive used some of her savings, purchased the belts from Europe, and arranged with a friend to have them shipped to Sierra Leone. And she ended up making a nice small profit from the deal. She quickly then engaged her new customer for other uniform items that, frankly, would be needed, and started supplying, in addition to belts, berets, and felt hats as well. She registered her business as Olimod School Outfitters and decided to use the garage of her house at Pademba Road in Freetown as a storefront. By the way, the name Olimod came from Olive and Modupe. That's my parents' names. This garage, by the way, was full of junk, which she cleaned and cleared out. She leveraged the talents of some of the young people that she was mentoring. And finally, in 1994, Olimod School Outfitters opened its doors to the public, providing these materials on retail, as well as, of course, supplying to the schools as a wholesale supplier. All of this occurred while Sierra Leone was in the midst of a civil war. But thankfully, at that time, the war action was largely limited to areas that were 120 to 280 miles from Freetown, the capital city, where Olimod was located. But this situation didn't last long, unfortunately. From 1997 to 1999, the Civil War spread to Freetown, and Olimod's business ground to a halt because people couldn't go to school. People even couldn't go to work for much of that time. Most of the capital that Olive had generated in Olimod basically got eroded. Finally, in 2000, as life returned to normal in Freetown, Olive tried to reignite the business, but she needed capital. Like a true entrepreneur, she didn't let the lack of capital stop her. And what she needed, she learned to ask for it. So she eventually reached out to me, her son. I was living at the time in the USA and married with a son. And after my mother approached me about investing in Olimod, my wife and I agreed. Now, Olive wasn't just satisfied with getting capital from me. She also wanted my contacts and my talent. She convinced me to leverage my networks and to help her diversify the supply chain for Olimod School Outfitters. You see, up to that time, most of the procurement had been from the UK or Western Europe. But Olive could see already that the prices that she was required to get these things at really wasn't going to be cost effective or sustainable over the long term. So I got involved. And eventually we were able to diversify the supply chain so that by the later part of the 2000s, by 2006, 2007, Olimod was purchasing and getting stuff manufactured for us from 3 different continents. As the company grew, Olive was also keenly aware of her responsibility to give back to society. Olimod became a consistent contributor and donor to the education of children in Sierra Leone, especially those whose parents came from meager means. And she did this through the provision of school prizes and scholarships for high-performing children whose parents could not really afford these things. This sense of duty to the less privileged in society was deeply ingrained in Olive. Now, I acknowledge a cynic might think, well, the business provides school uniforms to schools, so it's really just a marketing ploy to provide these kinds of gifts and scholarships. But I can speak about the intentions of my mother. When she did these things, it was not about ingratiating herself or the company with some of the parents or the decision makers at school. It was all about paying it forward. One of the statements that she made to me consistently, and I remember, was this. She would often say, "Modupe, there is a God-ordained purpose for every encounter you have with someone. God brings somebody across your path for one of two reasons. Either for you to be a blessing to them, or for them to be a blessing to you. Your responsibility is to ensure that the transfer of blessing occurs." This belief definitely shone through everything that Olive did. And as she blessed others, she also met people who blessed her and her business. In the year 2009, as she approached the age of 70, by which time Olimod was a big business, it was the largest distributor of uniforms in Sierra Leone, Olive started to execute her sustainability plan. She recruited my wife, Renee, to understudy her at Olimod and take over the business. Initially, Renee and I were resistant. First of all, we were living in the USA, not Sierra Leone. Second, Renee did not believe that she had the necessary skills or knowledge to take over the business. Third, I felt that as an investor in the business, I should be the one to take over the business. My mother was unapologetic. She was visionary, she was firm. She basically informed her daughter-in-law, Renee, that she saw more in her than Renee could see in herself. And she believed that Renee could do it. As for me, she told me plainly, she says, "You're not going to be a competent general manager of this business. The nature of the business and the people that the general manager has to sell to, these folks are senior and middle-aged mothers. You're going to struggle to build relationships with them." And finally, she convinced us that our future lay in Sierra Leone. So, in the year 2010, we moved. From 2010 to 2012, Renee understudied my mother, and by 2012, my mother put the business fully in Renee's hands. From 2012 until my mother's death in 2025, Olive Taylor-Pearce remained an advisor to the business. She never interfered in the running of the business. Even when Renee sometimes made decisions that I knew were different from how my mother would have wanted or made such decisions, she still had the self-discipline to allow her to make the decisions and run the business. Today, through all the fits and starts, Olimod has survived the Ebola crisis and the coronavirus crisis, and today it remains the largest distributor of school uniforms in Sierra Leone. There are a number of lessons to learn from the journey of Olive Taylor-Pearce. Lesson number 1, seek to solve problems. You see, Olive's belief about the transference of blessing made her intentional about listening keenly to the challenges of others. She listened to what they said, how they said it, and she asked questions to understand the challenges, and then she sought to solve them. She didn't wallow in self-pity or help others to do the same. She always sought solutions. You see, successful leaders don't avoid problems, and they also don't sit around just complaining about them. They find solutions. And in that way, my mother was definitely somebody who did that on a consistent basis. Lesson number 2, don't be afraid or too proud to ask for help. When Olive Taylor-Pearce needed help, she asked. She didn't allow any sense of shame or pride to prevent her from reaching out to those closest to her to ask for help, which included me, her son. If she needed somebody's time, talent, or treasure, she would ask for it. And I wasn't the only person that she asked. That's lesson number 2. Don't be afraid or too proud to ask for help. Lesson number 3, think beyond personal wealth and give back. My mother did not wait until she was a millionaire to start giving back and supporting those less fortunate than her. She did it instinctively whenever and wherever she saw an opportunity to do so. Some people make the mistake of thinking, oh, when I'm rich, then I will give back. Or when I've built 3 houses, then I will give back. Or when I've attained X amount of dollars in the bank, then I will give back. That's not how success works, folks. Success is enhanced by giving back, no matter how little you have to give back. As you are generous, so God will be generous to you. Lesson number 4, plan your future and have the courage to let go. Olive Taylor-Pearce was intentional about her succession planning. She knew that she didn't want the business to decline or to die as she aged. And she also knew that she had to initiate that succession plan. And she did. Nobody else could initiate it for her. When she handed over to Renee, she had the courage to trust her to make the right decisions, even when the decisions were different from what she, Olive, would have made. It's lesson number 4. Plan your future, have the courage to let go. The 5th lesson is a simple one. Age is but a number. It's never too late to start. I know that the common narrative with entrepreneurship, with success in Africa is about young people. But there are thousands, millions of you out there who may be in the supposed twilight of your career and want to do something. You have a dream, you have a vision, you have a passion. Don't buy into the idea that because you're in your 50s or 60s that you're too old to get started. Olive Taylor-Pearce started Olimont School Outfitters at age 54, an African woman. Your age is just a number. Get started. Your success is at the other end of your vision. In closing, I must confess that I resisted for a few weeks the suggestions of others to feature my mother in this podcast. I guess I was afraid that I might be perceived as biased towards my mother and not be able to really conduct the analysis. I realize now that really I was just succumbing to fear, and it was a fear that my mother would not have approved of. You see, Olive Taylor-Pearce was successful because she leaned into the fear and refused to let it stop her. What she did wasn't technically or academically mind-blowing. I mean, setting up a distributorship for school uniforms. What was her qualification? Former school teacher? There are thousands of such people in Sierra Leone. And there have been thousands of them over the last 3 decades. And yet only she did it. Why? Is she the only one who had the idea? Is she the only one who heard about the problem? No. But she's the only one who didn't allow fear or excuses to stop her from solving the problem. And she asked for help when she needed it. And she gave help when it was needed. These are some simple but essential qualities that one must have to be successful in Africa. And I hope that as you have learned this, you will also apply these principles. Look for the problems and solve them. Find solutions in them, not just complain. Ask for help when you need it. Give help when you can. And give back. And certainly start now. Now is the best time. All too soon, we've come to the end of another episode. I do hope you've learned a bit more about becoming successful in Africa. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Tell your friends about it. Together, we can transform our beloved continent and fulfill the legacy of successful Africans who have gone ahead of us. Rest in peace, Mommy. See you next week.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.